And welcome to Creator Weekly Live for May 5th, 2024. I'm Peggy Kay, and today I have a bunch of updates. If you make videos, if you have a blog or website, if you're on social media, thank you for joining me today. I see Craig and Andrew and Jolyn in the chat. Welcome. If you're here live, I'd love to know what you think about this week's updates. So, first of all, I wanted to mention that while there aren't big YouTube updates this week, the Creator Insider channel has a really interesting interview with Emily D. Baker. It's a long conversation. They call it their podcast. It's all around building community, memberships, and live streaming. And I think it's particularly interesting because she is a lawyer who talks about prominent cases. So this is not gaming. So often, live streaming and memberships, the discussion focuses around gaming content, and this isn't. So I recommend you go check out this discussion on the Creator Insider channel. Again, welcome everyone. I see Eileen and Mark are here today. Thank you for joining me. I hope you all are having a fantastic weekend. Here in the Bay Area, it was really cold and rainy yesterday, which wasn't great because I was going to go on a garden tour, and that kind of put a kibosh on that. Well, I did go, just less, and I got wet. But today it's beautiful and sunny, so I hope you're having a really nice weekend. Let's get started. So, whoops. The first thing I wanted to mention is a significant update on TikTok. So, as you remember, TikTok had a disagreement with the Universal Music Group about licensing music for the platform. And if you use TikTok, you know that the way it works is you make videos and then you can add music from their music library. It's licensed to use on TikTok. So they had this big disagreement. They couldn't come to terms. And Universal Music Group, which represents a huge number of really popular artists, withdrew their music. That made a lot of videos go mute, basically. I think it's not a big surprise that they did finally come to an agreement. So TikTok and Universal Music Group came to some kind of deal. The music is going to return to TikTok. And I just thought it was interesting that part of the deal that they call out specifically is that TikTok is going to help promote UMG's artists. And they're also going to work together to ensure AI development across the music industry will protect human artistry and the economics that flow to those artists and songwriters. So I think this is an acknowledgement of the changing landscape. There is AI-generated music out there. It imitates famous artists. And TikTok is saying, well, we're either going to prevent that or make sure that the music industry gets a cut of that. I don't know how much of that actually flows towards the artists, but we'll see. It feels a lot like this is confusing times where there's all this AI generated content and the big platforms, big music companies, the big publishers are fighting against it. How does that help the little guys, though, the independent musicians, bloggers, writers? It's not clear it does. So we'll see how that works. The other thing I wanted to mention regarding TikTok, as you probably know, the US voted on a ban of TikTok. They say TikTok has to start the process of selling, ByteDance, which is the parent company of TikTok, has to sell TikTok off starting in 6 months, or if not, it will be banned in the US. Details of that are unclear, but an interesting kind of note on that is that TikTok's video editing platform, CapCut, would also apparently be banned. And this is actually a big deal. I've used CapCut. I like CapCut a lot. It's very easy to use. It has a lot of tools. And what this article in the Washington Post by Taylor Lawrence is pointing out is a lot of people on TikTok obviously use this. It has integration with TikTok if you use it. Using the themes and templates there, it gives a certain look and feel to a lot of the videos. And I think it should probably be acknowledged that a lot of people who post video don't have a lot of video editing skills. That actually is a special skill to be able to edit video well. And if you go to CapCut, there's basically templates you can put your video into. It makes it very easy. Now, there are other tools. YouTube has a mobile video editing app, and I'm sure there's other ones as well, but CapCut is really the standard. So if that is banned as well, that could make a huge change to short form vertical videos, not only on TikTok, but also Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, because creators use these tools. So we will see how that goes. I think it's early days yet. TikTok says they're going to fight this ban in court. It may never happen. So we shall see. I'm going to shift gears just a little bit because the next big update this week, Instagram says they want to give small creators, original creators, more visibility on the platform. And this is actually a big deal because there are aggregator accounts on Instagram. They basically scoop up, popular videos from other people and they show them, and the aggregator account ends up getting more views than the original poster. And because people follow these aggregator accounts, because they have all the cool videos or whatever. So 2 big changes that Instagram says they're making. The first is a new algorithm. So they want to make it so that all creators have an equal chance of breaking through. Formerly, the way the algorithm worked is that it heavily weighted interaction from followers, and that favored the bigger accounts. Now, they're saying that, as long as your video doesn't violate their guidelines, they're going to show it to a small audience that they think will enjoy it. And if it does well with that small audience, they'll show it to a bigger audience. And again, as the video does, if it does even better, then they will show it to a new audience. So think of them kind of iterating. They put out a sample of the video, and then if it does well, they show it to more people. If that does well, they show it to more people. In theory, at least, that means smaller accounts are more likely to see their reels break through to a larger audience. Andrew asks, how do they define small? Less than 500,000. Well, that would definitely be small. It's not clear. But at least in theory, You could have 100 followers on Instagram and you post a reel, and through this process, if it's a really great reel that's capturing people's attention, it could see a much larger audience. We shall see. I think that there's probably going to be pushback from some of these larger accounts if this actually decreases their reach. And they haven't actually started this change yet, so we will see. The other big change is that they're going to try to better reward original content. So, first of all, if Instagram finds 2 or more pieces of identical content, they will only recommend the original one. And that means the original content will directly replace the reposted content in the recommendations. Of course, it's sort of a black box how Instagram will determine who is the original creator, but we shall see that. And then if they find a piece of reposted content, they will add a label linking it to the original creator. So that gives, hopefully, original creators a boost. And then they're going to remove aggregators from recommendations. So if there's an account that repeatedly posts content from other Instagram users that they didn't create themselves or enhance in some way, it will not be recommended. And this should at least decrease the visibility of some of these aggregator accounts that just scoop up content from a bunch of other Instagram accounts and then outperform them because they have a lot of followers. It will be really interesting to see if this does actually make a big difference in the way Instagram works. The devil is in the details for all these things, where, for example, it's going to be really important for Instagram to accurately determine which account is the original account. Does that mean that you should post everything on Instagram? Maybe so. The other interesting thing is that there are really legitimate reasons why content may be reposted. For example, if you did a collaboration and you each posted onto your account, or, for example, if you're a creator who is working with a brand, and often that content is posted both by the original creator and the brand's account. The way to get around this is to use a tool that lets you indicate it's a collaboration. This is available for both Reels and posts on Instagram, and it will post the same thing to both profiles. So hopefully that's good enough. Anything that makes brands unhappy is probably going to be updated, though, because they are part of what is driving people to create. Craig notes that copyright infringement is rampant. It is true. So hopefully some of these changes start favoring original creators who have had their Instagram content copied. So I'm going to totally shift gears here. And then the next updates are for people who have websites or blogs, especially if you're monetizing with AdSense. First of all, I just share with you all something I just noticed is this is my Blogger profile. I originally joined Blogger and created a blog in May 2004, which was 20 years ago, for Pete's sake. I can't even believe it. It's not the same blog that I had then, but I just thought that kind of blew my mind that I've been using Blogger for 20 years. Mark says, if the aggregate account gets views, it could push up the original. That is possible, especially if there is a clear link back to the original. I think that is the ideal outcome, where maybe these aggregator accounts actually do help with the exposure. That's always the excuse, right? Where they took the content and it's like, oh, well, you should be happy I stole your content because I'm giving you exposure. But usually that doesn't even link back to the original. So it's not actually useful exposure. Jillian says, congrats on 20 years. It's a terrific tool. Yeah, I think so too. Pretty easy to use. I've used WordPress. I've used other things, and Blogger is just kind of easy. Very basic, but easy. And time flies. Of course, it's a totally different landscape now than it was 20 years ago. 20 years ago was sort of peak blogging. Everyone was doing it. Now it's much more a niche thing. Maybe blogging will come back. I like to think that. I did actually start posting a little bit on my old personal blog, but that kind of got pushed by the wayside. Just don't have the time I did 20 years ago. Okay, so a few updates that you should be aware of. As you probably know, third-party cookies are on their way out. They can invade privacy. They can be used for hijacking accounts. They're not secure. They invade privacy. So I think both Safari and Firefox block third-party cookies by default. Google is also phasing out third-party cookies on Chrome. There is, they have incentive to keep the third-party cookies because it helps gather information for the advertisers, and advertising is the business Google is in. But they are phasing out third-party cookies. They did post an update to say that the phase out of third-party cookies is going to be delayed. It was going to be in the second half of this year. It's been pushed beyond that. One of the reasons, I think, is that a lot of sites do use third-party cookies, including Google, for non-nefarious things. So, for example, if you are using Blogger and you want people to be able to leave comments on your blog, but you want them to be signed in to an account to do that to prevent spam. The tricky thing is, if they're on your blog, they are not on, it's a site that's hosted by Google, but the domain isn't google.com. And so their sign in to Google is actually considered third party. And so if you block third party cookies, you may not be able to leave a comment signed into your Google account, or you may need to sign in again. It's that kind of thing that can be really disruptive, that hopefully they're figuring out ways to work around. I suspect that's part of the delay, but it will be happening probably more like early next year rather than by the end of this year. Another big update is that Google Search put in a bunch of updates to their spam policies. And one of those policies, site reputation abuse, that policy goes into effect starting today. Now, this is when third-party pages are published with little or no first-party oversight or involvement, where the purpose is to manipulate search rankings by taking advantage of the first-party site's ranking signals. So this would include things, a common example is Forbes, for example, which is a well-known brand, and they have a section like with coupons. Does this fit the rest of the site? Not really. Or a site may have a section where there is just affiliate content. And this is obviously advertising, even though it's sometimes dressed up as original content, and it's using the original site's reputation to rank more highly in the search results. And so Google has said, no, you shouldn't do that anymore, and they will penalize that. So again, this will start rolling out today. It's not clear how long it will take for these changes to go into place, but hopefully this will actually improve the search results. For example, I see tons of articles basically linking to affiliate products on reputable news sites and other sites, and a lot of it is just junk. So, oh, I didn't show that information. This is the information about the site reputation abuse policy. Again, goes into effect starting today. It will take some time to do it. If you're thinking about just adding content just essentially because it's advertising or to build on the reputation of your site, yeah, don't do that. The other update I wanted to mention today is a change in Google's publisher policies. So the policy change, which will affect AdSense, so that's putting ads on your own blog, AdMob, which puts ads in apps, and Google Ad Publisher. The new update is that they will not allow promoting the creation or distribution of content that has been synthetically altered or generated to be sexually explicit or contain nudity. So this is what's more colloquially generally known as deepfake porn. So these are apps that use generative AI to make someone look like they're nude or, provide images that are sexual in nature. And again, the important wording here is that they do not allow promoting the creation of or distribution of this content. This means that it's not just linking. It could be tutorials on how to use these things. And they have also updated their Google Ads policy. This is the policy that advertisers have to follow, and it's the same policy. So again, they say it's not allowed to advertise content promoting the creation or distribution of synthetic content that's been altered or generated to be sexually explicit or contain nudity. They say specifically, as an example, sites or apps that claim to generate deepfake porn or instructions on how to create deepfake porn or comparing different services. This is all prohibited now. And this, I think, is a good thing. And this is in addition to the current policy around sexual content. So you are also not allowed to share sexually explicit content. This goes beyond that. It says, you can't actually promote these generative AI tools that create sexual content, even if you're not actually posting the sexual content itself. So we shall see if they do that. This is really a genie that's hard to put back into the bottle. If there's a tool, people use it to create pornography. But at least this way, it can't be monetized and can't be advertised using Google Ads. This goes into the effect at the end of the month. So you may still see these ads up until then. So those are the big updates this week. Let me see how my timing is doing. Oh, we have a few more minutes. And I am going to find a couple small updates. If I can find the correct tab. When I'm talking about all these things, I open up all the information in tabs already, and then of course it's really hard to find the information again. A couple things I wanted to mention I thought were interesting about security, account security. And the big companies all want you to set passkeys for your account rather than use a password. Passwords can be stolen, they can be guessed. A passkey uses a device that you have and you sign into. So, for example, if your phone is your passkey, you have to have a fingerprint sign in or a PIN. So the idea is you have the phone and you also are able to sign into the phone. That really is the bottom line. It's like two-step verification in one step. So this was National Password Week, something like that. Google has an update on passkeys. They say that they will now allow you to create a passkey using a physical hardware key. So up until now, you can use either your phone, and if you have an Android device, Google automatically creates a passkey on it as long as you're signed into your Google account. Or you could use your computer. This is built into Windows, Mac OS. You can use your computer as the passkey. Now you can also use a security key. And Google is expanding their use of passkeys to their cross-account protection program, which shares security notifications with other companies. They are also allowing passkeys for high-risk users. A high-risk user would be someone like a politician, celebrity, someone who's likely to be targeted directly. And the idea is that originally you had to have 2 physical security keys to enroll in the advanced protection program. Now you can use a passkey as well. And a lot more companies are supporting passkeys for sign-in to them, including 1Password and Dashlane. Also, Amazon.com. I got a big prompt from Amazon on my phone when I signed in. Oh, do you want to set a passkey? So this is the way things are moving towards the future. Eileen says, I use facial recognition on my iPhone 11, but you don't have it on your iPhone 8. Yeah. The more recent phones do have more biometric security options, but you could also use a PIN. Don't share the PIN or your device. And Craig says, I like hardware keys because I know who has control of it. Yeah, I think that is the big advantage of a hardware key, that someone who puts malware on your computer or, guesses your password, they still can't sign into your account because they need this physical hardware key. Of course, the downside of that is that if you lose the physical hardware key or it breaks, you may lose access to your account. So you do need backup options or more than one key. But the other thing is that this is not just Google who's pushing this. This is all the big tech companies. And this week, Microsoft introduced passkeys for consumer accounts. So if you have a Microsoft account, you can set a passkey for that as well. It is not truly passwordless yet, but that is the direction they want everyone to head in. I think you can actually change the setting to say, oh, don't prompt me for my password. I'll just use my passkey instead, but passwords are still there. So this is a long time coming. Security is a huge issue. People are having their accounts hijacked all the time, and it's confusing and complicated to keep track of passwords or, second factors and so forth. So hopefully these changes improve security overall. All right. So those were the big updates I wanted to talk about this week. There's a lot of smaller updates. You can find them in my blog post or my newsletter. If you have not subscribed to my newsletter, you can do that. There's a link right here. That will get you all the updates and links in your email inbox every Saturday morning. And then we have the show here today on Sunday to talk about them. So those are the updates for this week. Thank you so much for joining me live. I hope you found it interesting. Oh, Mark says, I worry that the biometric fingerprint won't work if you had yeah, that is the downside of biometrics, that it has to match what you set up. So at least on my phone with the fingerprint sensor, I can set up multiple fingers to sign in, which I've done. But you should also have backup options set. Oh, I see Jolyn beat me to that. Set up more than one finger. Yes. Don't just rely on all your account access being on one finger that you might get a paper cut or, injure or something like that. So I think that, again, it's always a good time to run a security update on your account. Make sure that you are not relying on just one way to access your account. And make sure your account is secure. Oh, Jolene says, I have 2 on my HP laptop. Yeah, so these security things are not just for mobile devices, they're for laptops as well. So you don't necessarily need to do it on your phone, but you probably do want to do it on your phone if you switch between devices frequently. And Craig says, I love the show. Thanks. Thank you all for joining me live. I love the discussion here. You guys are really interested and engaged, and I love the information shared. So thank you for doing that. Join me again next week. Next week, we'll have a little preview talking about what will be coming up for Google I/O. That's on May 14th. And I will see you then. Thank you so much.